stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Shelley Lacey Pascala.
Present.
He is there.
Okay,
And Jackie is available now.
okay, great. Thank you so much. We welcome you all to our Board of Education meeting, December 14th. And are very excited to have visitors for today. So, amendments to the agenda. Somebody have any amendments? So we have our class here, so Dr. Miller,
We actually have a representative from each of the kindergarten classes here today. And thank you for parents for bringing them tonight. We have a lovely presentation of the music and dance that children did in school for the winter holidays. So this is a small winter concert for the Board of Education and the public. And I believe each one of our students has something they're going to read and they're going to play the Thank you.
Parents, if you want to come up here and take pictures, you are more than welcome to do that.
I feel like that. My name is Oliver Gabriel, and I am from Mrs. Harmon's kindergarten classroom in our class in Bungalow.
Good evening. My name is Cecilia Moran, and I'm in Miss Miller's kindergarten classroom. In my class song we sing and did sign language to Santa Claus is coming to town. Good evening. My name is Adeline Chair, and I'm in Miss Becky Oakley's kindergarten classroom. We sing and play instruments to the Dreidel song. Good evening. My name is Amelia Cologne. I am from Miss Martin's kindergarten classroom. We use stuffed nutcrackers to make dance movements to the welcome tri-pack from the nutcracker. Good evening. My name is Deirdre Krista, and I am in Miss Ritz's kindergarten classroom. We dance to the Hawaiians of Mele Kaliki Maka.
Good evening. My name is Noah Hale, and I am in Miss Gilchrist's kindergarten classroom. We dance with scarves to the Chinese tea dance from the Nutcracker Ballet.
Hello, my name is Bluebell Jelly, and I'm from Miss Cook's class. All class sing Jingle Bells for you to enjoy. Happy holidays!
Before you sit down, hold on. For you. Oliver. It's for you. Noah. Adeline. And Amelia. Demetra. And this list to you, Cecilia. There you go. It will be here. You know what it is? Shift over to the side of the top here.
I know our kindergarten teachers are here, just stand up for a second.
Yeah, that's recommended as well. Got it, your music teacher. Vice President Swift, for a second. Ready? Come close together. Ready? Just bear with us. We're just going to switch laptops. I again want to thank all for being here tonight and allowing us to celebrate the holidays with you. Thank you.
On behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to wish you a happy holiday, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. We're going to move on to the rest of our meeting, so if you would like to leave, you're perfectly welcome to do so. On your way out, there's artwork of high school students, so take a look and enjoy celebrating the kids. And thank you all very much for coming. We can take a couple minutes if you guys want to. Rachel, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It meant a lot to us too, so it was fun. Thank you. Happy holidays. Good job, Rachel.
So, the board would like to take a moment of silence to remember the families, the town of Sandy Hook. Today, 9 years to Sandy Hook. Let's take the time to acknowledge that tragedy and acknowledge that it's a critical time for many of us who kids in school. A minute of silence. I just would like to acknowledge the passing of a former staff member and Jenny Willits, who used to be a teacher or coach at Dreidel Middle School, now Oxford Middle School. So someone passed away, so I'd just like to send our sympathies to her family. Approval of minutes. So take a motion to approve the November 9th special board of education minutes.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions? All in favor? Nay? Abstain?
Mike Husa abstains. I wasn't at the Board of Ed meeting on the 9th.
Okay, motion to approve the November 23rd special board of education minutes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also, just make sure we speak of.
All in favor? I did that already.
Aye.
Abstain?
Oop.
Aye.
Sorry, it's my first time. Shelley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I said aye. The sound is really breaking up a lot, so if I delay, I apologize.
That's okay. Sure. Mike?
I accepted.
Okay, great. Okay, minutes, audience citizens, anybody want to speak? But just, you can state loudly your name and address.
Yep, I got you. My name is Jennifer Wallenick. I live at 42 Jensen Farm Road, right behind the high school. Hi, distinguished board members, thank you for everything you do and your volunteering. You guys don't get enough praise for everything you do. Mr. Hibbert, Dr. Miller. Thanks for being here and thanks for having me. I'm here as kind of a little representative of the Oxford High Swim team, as well as the, kind of the Oxford Honors. Yeah, okay. I just want to state that right now, this is kind of a response to a thread that's been going back with Dr. Miller and I. So I appreciate your communication. I can talk loud. Can I take this off since I'm by myself? Oh, great. Thank you. This year, the boys have the largest team ever of 26 boys. It is suggested that some of them will end up swimming in regionals and representing our high school at a regional level. The Oxford Otters have close to 200 swimmers on their swim team, and the girls team, which was the largest it's ever been and actually had diving this year for the first time in many years, actually have had the best record they've ever had. So for that, we're very, very excited and very proud. But the pool's a mess. The diving board is broken and the timing system is broken. 2 out of the 6 pads don't work. So the timing has to be rechecked, quadruple, like several times. These issues are not new. Someone taking care of and maintaining the pool has been in question for years. I mean, I can tell you I've lived in this town for 20 years and the school opened in 2007 and I took my kids to swim lessons there and their bathing suits disintegrated. The pool has consistently been an issue of concern. And as of late, and even into recent times, the bottom is stained green. The air quality is poor. They had to cancel practice the other night or leave it early because the kids have what we would call chlorine cough because they couldn't breathe and they couldn't see. And please, I take this very, as an athlete myself, growing up an athlete, I don't want to come and say this. My biggest fear is that the pool's going to get shut down and they won't be able to swim and they won't be able to do what they need to do. So part of us was like, let's just hide it because at least they'll get swimming. So no, this comes with like a very heavy heart that we bring these issues up. Nobody's ever taken care of it. We don't know if anybody's trained to take care of it. It does take training to take care of the pool. This issue has come up in previous Board of Ed meetings, like probably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I've lived here a long time and I'm aging myself. And although the diving board is a recent issue, the timing system is not. It's been ongoing and it was brought up in the January Board of Ed meeting, and I know you have allotted money for it for 2023 to fix it. Why? Why 2023? If you know it's broken, it's only going to break worse. This is the same system that was put in the pool in 2007. If one of you has a computer that's from 2007, please let me know, because this is just technology and you would not keep something and not maintain something from 2007. None of us have technology from 2007. Not even, well, some people might have phones, but most phones, no. So it hasn't been maintained. It's broken now. We have kids who are going to go to regionals. I don't understand why it was added to a 2023 budget. It doesn't support the needs of our kids now. What were we going to do? What was the plan or the Band-Aid that we were going to do to keep this school up and running for these kids? I think it's disgusting that the girls team ended up having to swim through this and no one made a bigger deal about it. It's not going to get better. It's just going to break more and more. I know that Coach Stockton, I've talked to him a couple times too, is looking at quotes, and he also, both of you provided information regarding a quote of between $15,000 and $25,000, but that's not a quote. A quote was paper and numbers and really knowing what we're doing. That's just a guesstimate. No business would ever provide a quote in that format, and no Board of Ed and no superintendent would pass anything that said between $15,000 and $25,000. Like, that's just silly. So that's not a quote, although I appreciate the effort. We all know that the process of getting these quotes through the Board of Ed and the Finance Committee is an excruciatingly long process. And that doesn't even begin to mention the backlog of parts and workers that everything is being impacted by the pandemic. How are you going to address all of this? even by 2023. Like, if this had been in the budget 2 years ago, when it was an issue and when we brought it up as issues, we wouldn't now be scrambling. The high school pool falls under the jurisdiction of the school district, not the Park and Rec department. It is the school's responsibility to maintain it and fix it. As the Otters have so many students, I would recommend that somebody contact Krista Donovan and Brian Kenny. And I can give you their numbers if you don't have them, to see if they'd be interested in adding in for fundraising, because they use the pads as well. But I can't speak for them. I assume that as part of the athletic director position, that this would be something that he would be able and willing to do. Because I would think that being in touch with the feeder programs in town would be part of under his jurisdiction. If the pool ends up closing for any reason other than COVID, which God willing, I hope it doesn't, I am honestly going to be requesting that you find another pool for our kids to swim in and provide transportation. Although my kid will drive anybody we can. But it's not fair. It's not fair that we should miss our season and the opportunities because the district planned poorly and because of the cheap mentality. Overall, it's really disappointing. If you fix it now, it'll negatively impact the team. And if you don't fix it, it's like all the timing can be messed up for it. You know, my son is being recruited by colleges and is looking to possibly swim in college, as well as one other student. And we also have the kids coming up the pike who could easily be college swimmers. It's embarrassing when people come in and scouts are coming in and seeing a pool that the base is green and the timing pads don't work, and we have to have 4 or 5 timers to cover it. It's not what we expected when we built the high school. Don't get me wrong, I know that was a while ago. At the end of the day, all of the kids will lose, but the seniors will lose the most. They don't have next year. They don't have till 2023 to get their times better. For some of the seniors, this is the last time they're going to swim in any kind of competitive model or method. And the fact that we knowingly postpone this for 2 to 3 years is unfair. My only hope is that my 10-year-old will have pads that work by the time he gets up to high school. Thank you for listening to me. And again, thank you for everything that you guys do. I know it's not always just job, but thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you, Jen.
Jen, I do have a lot of answers for you based on what you just said. I will address that in my superintendent's report later, but we could also speak on the phone tomorrow for further details.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, everybody. Linda Jaworski, 30 Freeman Road. I came tonight because I have some questions about ruler. And I was wondering if anyone on board of superintendent could just tell me a little bit about how we're implementing this in the classroom. It came up at 2 meetings ago, I think, when someone from the middle school started talking about improvement plans that were coming into the school. So I started to do some research on some of the acronyms and the things that came out of that. And I understand this, or my understanding in my research is this kind of goes along with social emotional learning, right? So ruler, and I'll tell you, I don't know to what degree you all dive in and research some of this stuff, but holy mackerel, you get into one rabbit hole and you can go through a labyrinth and be there for weeks and weeks. So what I came upon was that ruler was actually developed by Dr. Mark Brackett, who works in an area of Yale and New Haven, right, behavioral health. And it's an acronym of recognize emotions, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating. Okay, so I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about how this is integrated into the classroom and how it's tracked, shared, discussed. Anybody?
State your questions and talk to the board. It's usually not a back and forth
Okay, all right, fair enough, then I'll make a couple of
We
points.
can certainly get the position.
Okay. I'm asking these particular questions because apparently there is an app that is available. So I'm curious how this is being implemented K through 12. If it's being used, if the app is being used, right? There's got to be some kind of tracking mechanism, right? Because the kids are supposed to monitor their behavior and the teachers are monitor their behavior. And it's supposed to be integrated, my understanding, school, home, classroom, etc. So if we're using the app, I want to know how the school is guaranteeing privacy. How are you protecting personally identifiable information? Right, because clearly, if you're going to track the emotions and the feedback from the child, then if they're using a computer in the classroom, then certainly you can tie that information back to students. So how are we protecting that? And how are we ensuring that it's not getting out there into the public domain, the corporate domain for use for something else? I'm also curious about the kind of training that teachers go through in order to be able to facilitate ruler. There's a lot in here. As I said, you can go down a rabbit hole and take you in different directions. And I came into another area where Inspira, which is a program that is offered as a partner through the Dalio Foundation, right? It's through Yale and it's offered through the Dalio Foundation. And this is a 10-week course that helps with ruler and understanding how to implement this. And that was interesting to me because when we get into the realm of emotions, right? Emotions are subjective. And I have no problem with trying to help people understand their emotions, recognize emotions. I worked 2 years as a chaplain in Bridgeport Hospital. And I can tell you that the training that you go through, it's emotion focused. And in order to get certification, you have to go through a minimum of 4 years. And it's grueling. There are papers to write, there are lectures, there's coursework between peers. Okay, so it's very, very intensive. So this piqued my interest because I'd like to know more about how we're training teachers, because a 10-hour deep dive, it just barely scratches the surface. I'm also interested in knowing or understanding how we facilitate this in the classroom. If there are discussions, like group discussions, or if it's done in a scenario where there is back and forth and there's discussion between peers or student and teacher, if there's a conflict of some sort, I want to know how that whole dialogue is managed. What happens if the child doesn't want to share? How do you respect their privacy if they don't want to share? How do we protect children from bullying that can come out of that? If we're going to start to talk about emotions, then we have to be prepared to deal with the backlash. Is there behavior that's going to go underground because now you can't discuss things? Depending on how we manage this, do we have to be careful, again, going back to the bullying part of the equation, that behavior is going to go underground? Are the shy ones going to withdraw? Are the more outspoken ones, are they going to become a little bit more dominant? We need to be very careful when we get into this whole group dynamic. I also want to ensure that as we implement this, it's with an attitude of empowerment. We have a lot of victimhood in our society. Let's be careful not to create a generation of victims. It's great to share. Again, I respect the program. I understand why it would be looking to be implemented. It could be a great way to build community, but we need to be very careful from what I'm reading here of how we manage it and to make sure that we understand what potential unintended consequences exist.
So those are the high points that I wanted to cover. And to your point, Ms. Sherman, about getting back to me, I would like the board to manage my expectations. I walked away from the meeting last month where I brought up some curriculum concerns, questions, and I recognize that you're all unpaid volunteers. You've got day jobs and other responsibilities. But I need to understand timelines, who my point of contact is going to be, and when I can expect some kind of response on the information that I brought forth last month and on these questions here, because these are not rhetorical.
So the questions on the curriculum will probably hear.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We'll have a curriculum update later on in the board meeting, so we stay with us.
Okay, and will they address, see, I came with some very specific concerns as I brought here today. So I'm looking for very specific answers.
You'll have some, you'll see
Okay.
some issues with curriculum. We're working
Okay.
on it. So-
And for those that aren't targeted to my specific concerns, I want to know who my point of contact is and what the time frame is for those questions and these questions.
Well, since I'm chairing the meeting tonight, I'll be in contact with Dr. Miller.
Okay, all
You
right.
can always contact the superintendent with me, and I represent from contact with the.
I'm sorry, Dr.
You're always
Martinez.
welcome to give me a call, email, and you can go over any of your questions and
Okay.
get answers.
Okay, all right, then I look forward to hearing the updates later, and I'll leave my contact information when the meeting
There's
adjourns.
a signage for that.
Oh, okay, even better. Okay, thank you,
Dr. Miller.
thank you.
Anybody else? Beyond special education report, Tracy? Sorry, I was, that never happened.
So Mrs. Hussey is here tonight for a special education report. In preparation for tonight, she was asked to focus on general overview of special education. We purposely left out the connections program that will be up in the presentation in January for the board. And there'll be additional information I will provide you in that presentation. So if there are any questions as to why that was not there tonight, that was not the reason.
Good evening. How are you all? Good. All right. Dr. Miller, can you open it up just that we can have it visible? I think that everybody received the report ahead of time. And within the report, there were live links. So I'll speak more in a summative manner, and then I can answer any questions that you have. And I also would welcome the opportunity, if anybody wants to talk in more depth about anything that's in the report, I'm happy to meet with you individually or as a small group, whatever you'd like to do. All right, so this report kind of gives a snapshot of special education in Oxford at a glance. As Dr. Miller said, I'm going to be following up in January to talk a little bit about budget requests for next year, as well as an overview, a more extensive overview of our Connections program. Last year, I gave you kind of Connections a day in the life, and in January, I'll dive in a little bit deeper into courses and curriculum and student numbers and cost of the program. Okay, so I'll begin with our eligibility. I think you can tell by the numbers that are presented in the report that our special education identification rate is certainly on the increase. We have seen a pretty significant increase in identification. It's not uncommon to just Oxford. This is a trend that we're seeing across the state. I would venture to say across the nation. What we're seeing here in Oxford is a pretty significant increase in autism, OHI, which also holds the umbrella for ADD and ADHD, as well as learning disabilities. So I think one of the things that's noteworthy is that we're looking at this point in the year, 50 more identified students than we were at this point in the year last year. Also included in the report is the Special Education Annual Progress Report from the Connecticut State Department of Education. So that report comes out annually, and it's kind of like our report card. So we did very well. We met all of the criteria that the state identifies as major indicators with our graduation rate, with our decrease to dropout rate, with our decrease to out-of-school suspensions. We also did very well with our regular education class placement. And what that means is that we do the best that we can to have students be included in their general education classrooms, okay? We did very well with our separate class placements, as well as our decrease in placements outside of the public school system. We also did well with our transition goals and services. So a lot of the work that I talked to you about last year, we're seeing some of that progress. We're seeing that we're really writing more effective transitionary goals and objectives. I think it's important for all of you to know too that that law's changed. It's now a requirement for a transition plan to be a part of an IEP from age 14 on, where it used to be age 16. So it is a legal requirement for students to have a post-secondary education and employment goal as a part of their IEP. So we're doing a lot with our PD, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. The two areas where Oxford didn't meet the state's criteria is the pre-K program. So the regular early childhood placement with a decrease to segregated placement. And what that means is that our pre-K classroom, we try to include peer role models, and we don't have a ratio that meets the state standard right now, okay? And that's really where we fell a little bit short. The other area where we had criteria that didn't meet success, also not uncommon in Connecticut due to COVID, was testing timelines. So many of our kids, I would say, when I say many, it's about 6 or 7 students over the course of the year didn't meet the initial evaluation timelines due to school closures and not being available or ready to be tested. Also within the report, I included a great snapshot of the new classrooms that we have. So Ms. Smith's classroom, which is a Quaker Farm school, which houses our K-4 students that have unique needs and needs that are requiring intensive service. And there are some great pictures there where you can see kids working one-on-one, and you can get a feel for what the classroom looks like and what the typical schedule looks like. So we have 5 students currently in that program, and they're off to a great start. For a new classroom with that type of intensive ABA type of instruction, they're really off to a great start. And once again, I welcome any of you to come and see the classroom. We could bring you and we can schedule a visit. We also included a snapshot of our new pre-K classroom, and that's also been wonderful for our students. The amount of space alone, the environment, and the lack of crowding that existed within one classroom last year has allowed students to have more time and space for play. So there's more stations, there's more opportunity for students to receive hopefully that role model approach with typical peers joining the classroom. We have space, we have availability. So if you know anybody who has a pre-K kid, recruit them. We'd love to have them with us. Community Exploration Program is our 18 through 22 program. Included in the summary report, there's a link to the state memo about how criteria also changed for education of students. It used to be through the age of 21, depending on nature and severity of need and the need for post-secondary education beyond just credits for needed for graduation. And it was July of last year that they changed that criteria to the age of 22. So we do have students that at times are staying in an additional year for our services, depending on their need.
Those decisions are made through the PPT process and very individual in nature. I also included there a link to the Connecticut Core Transition Standards. Those are the skills associated with that program and the skills that the students are learning. Also, there's a link to the current work sites and what types of activities of daily living the students are participating in. Things are opening up again and students are getting out back into the community for their work experience. There's also some great pictures. We get a weekly update, crew news, and they give us kind of a snapshot of what everybody's doing during the course of the week. Happy to share that with you too, if you'd like. Yes. Great, okay. I also included their special activities that we've had going on over the course of the year. So on November 13th, the PPS department held a parent forum. We had many workshops. I listed the workshops there for you if you're interested in any of that information or what some of those programs are about. I'm happy to speak with you or connect you with the right people that can talk to you about them. Next year, we're gonna figure out a way where we can recruit more people. I'm thinking pizza. Pizza might be the way. Okay. We also had vendors. So we had agency supports as well as community supports. We had speech and language service providers. We had Oxford, the Wellness Center of Oxford, available to talk with our family members, as well as agencies from the state, such as DDS and DSS, the Division of Autism. And we also had Level Up, BRS services, which is an employability service for people when they leave the public education setting. So people from those agencies were available to talk to families about eligibility criteria. And we'll continue to think about those types of forums where we can really bring good educational planning for families. All right, I also added in some of our strategic priorities as a department. One of those things that I mentioned a little bit earlier is the transition piece. So our special education secondary providers have been going through a series of workshops on appropriate transition steps. In that report is a grid of some of the different transition assessments that we brought into district to help us better plan for post-secondary education and employment. The elementary and the middle school faculty have been engaging in a workshop series provided by our reading specialists on structured literacy and dyslexia. So we've focused on informal and formal assessment measures. And when you have an issue that you feel a student is experiencing within domains of reading, what are the appropriate measures and what type of assessments you should conduct to try to determine what's the best plan of action. And our paraprofessionals have been participating in a workshop series on executive functioning. So many times our students, they have the academic skills, but it's areas of executive functioning that limit their success in the classroom. Whether it's management, whether it's organization, whether it's initiation, whether it's shift, whether it's self-regulation, those are all factors that impact their success. So our paraprofessionals, who often serve in our general question?
Yes. You said there's 50 additional students
Yes.
in the first part. And are these in the primary grades or what? Are they new students? Now, how do we miss 50 if they're present students? The new students. I've been talking about new students for 2 years now.
Sure.
It would be like a surprise the way you mentioned.
Well, you're right. You're right. Our numbers certainly show an increase of increment of an increase over time. And what the state is seeing as a trend, as well as Oxford, and I talked about this last year, was the increase with OHI, mental health, as well as ADHD and autism. Now, autism and ADHD were on the increase well before COVID, okay? What's unique about this year is we're seeing also a drastic increase with learning disability identification. Now, over the summer, there's a building project here in Oxford. Through that building project and that phase 1 of opening some of those residential homes, we brought in 9 additional students through the summer that registered, that had IEPs. We had a couple students move from other districts that are on the autism spectrum, 2 of which require very intensive service. And then what we're also noticing is we're getting more referrals. We're getting more referrals from families. We're getting more referrals from SRBI teams and school-based teams.
I don't understand what
So a referral is when a school-based team feels that a child might have a disability. So we have a duty under the term child find to make sure that we properly answer a parent who feels there might be a suspected disability, a school that the school-based member that feels that there might be a suspected disability. And if a referral is made to special education, that means that a team comes together and determines if an evaluation is warranted. Now, through that evaluation, students are often identified and services are provided.
it's preemptive.
Yes. Other questions?
Besides the increase in the 50, and I look at it as the increase of somebody outside coming in, I view it as perhaps a system that's starting to work.
Mhm.
Because I can tell you, 20 years in this town, I have a special ed child. Prior to the last few years, it didn't. Right, so I view that as maybe a positive. It's a negative because there's so many kids that need help, but positive, maybe we're identifying the problem. Process and control.
I do think that you make a really good point, Steve, and I think that we're seeing, because of some of the professional development that we put in place, and because of the high level of, let's call it expertise, that some of our reading specialists and people in the district may have, that we are better targeting and using very good assessment to really peel away and find root problems. So I do think that comes into play quite a bit.
And quite honestly, I mean, this is just one board's perception. I think part of it is climate, part of it is part of it is so I think that might be helping as well, not being in that. But just looking back to numbers we've had in the past, discussions we've had in the past, so I think we can't discount climate. Just an observation. My other question is, besides the sheer number of people coming in that we need to service, what do you consider that ties to dollars? Beyond the dollars, what is the biggest challenge you think you have going into next year? To think maybe outside of the box, looking at like how do we, increase the services or get more effective in services.
Mhm. I do think that when I look at need for next year, I do think that reading is a priority. And when I say reading, I'm talking about servicing our population of students that require a very specific type of reading instruction. So one of the numbers and you'll see in that grid, yes, learning disabilities are on the increase. Within that, though, is the dyslexic number, which has gone up by 7 students in comparison to last year. That's a large number. Because when you look at structured literacy is very tailored to a unique starting point on a scope and sequence. So you can't just group people together, because really you have to teach very specific skills that complement each other and build. So it's going to be intensive, and it's going to be small group. It's going to be 4 at the most, is what they recommend. It's going to be 1 or 2 usually, especially at the early level. Okay, so reading is definitely a priority. We are trying to get creative with some of the ESSER Special Education Activity Fund that have come in. A good chunk of that money I've earmarked to tutoring for structured literacy. Now that's a 1 year and it's done. So it ends in June of 2023. And then when I talk about budget requests for next year, I am making the request for another reading teacher. Those are really my priorities. We also need to think about the intensive programming. We have a fantastic program on the ground at Quaker. I'm really interested in growing that program to the middle school so that the kids that we have in that program, we don't have to outplace once they hit that end of 4th grade year. You know, that's something that it's very likely we could do with some shifting of staff if we had another reading person that could come in and support reading.
Anybody? Shelley or?
Right, do you have anything to say?
Tracy, with this, the tutoring you mentioned, we can go out. Do you feel confident we can attract tutors? Think about the job market as a whole. There's a lot of jobs not filled, not working. Right? And that's probably something that's in the past. There's a chance it needs to be a new challenge.
I'm communicating with somebody currently who's interested, who has a very, very high certification level. And I'm hopeful that will be somebody that will be consistent for us. But once again, you know, that's a 1 year solution. With numbers that are growing, you know, with the learning disability number that's shifted and grown that much, you know, it's the need for more hours is going to be on paper. And of course, what we put onto those IEPs are legally bound. We need to follow them.
Any chance we find a tutor that's looking for a full-time gig, bring a tutor in with maybe potentially buy? Does that exist in this educational world?
Repeat it for me.
So when you think of tutor, do you think like a consulting agency, a tutor, or you think about somebody who has experience who is part-time but really could convert that tutor maybe into your full-time role if they're the right qualified person?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm open to all sorts of creative solutions. I just know that the need exists and the hours certainly need to increase. But yes, I'm open to any type of discussion like that.
So we work with Wellness Center
Mhm.
in Oxford.
Yes.
So when you come forward when you do your budget proposal, can you kind of give us some ideas of the cost, the contract, and how that process works? Because I know we've been looking for some information on that in the past. You know, how do the kids get referred there? Do we pay for it? Does it go to insurance, whatever? So maybe when you come back with your budget proposal.
Sure.
you can- 'cause
Yeah,
that's-
absolutely. I could give you a snapshot now, or I could give you an in-depth later.
I mean, just a snapshot, that'd be great.
Okay, so Wellness Center is something that we contract with them through our special education consultation line. So it is a service that's under special education, but it's a service that encompasses all students, regular ed and special ed. So right now, our school social workers and school psychologists, if they have a situation where they're doing an assessment, somebody either is expressing self-harm or suicidal ideation, and they feel that they need a more clinical interpretation, they can call the Wellness Center of Oxford
instead of 211 service. 211 service is a fantastic service, but there are some shortfalls to it in the sense that you don't have a consistent provider. You often wait a lengthy period of time for the provider to arrive, and that child is in distress. So with the wellness center, when we make that phone call to them, they respond within, they're contracted to respond within an hour time period. It is a flat rate of pay for a crisis intervention and assessment. I believe it's $200. From there, they make the determination of next steps. So they may say that the child needs to travel and be seen in an emergency room, or at least with an outside psychiatrist or treating physician. They may also say to the family, we'd like to work with your child. We're gonna, ask that you make the referral. Once that referral is made and they're being seen privately through the wellness center, it becomes the wellness center and the family that work on. Okay. We have had the wellness center do workshops for us, and they will charge us for professional development. But primarily it's crisis intervention and management. They have been great when our school social workers or psychologists want or have a family that is asking for help. We give them the contact for wellness center, and we have many, many families that have made great connections with their counselors there. So it's been a great partnership.
This is our second year first. We started that last summer. So for academic year last year and this year.
And the second question I had is on our pre-K program. Do we have any sense why we're having this care students who come in? Or?
Well, we certainly recruited. Linda was my recruiter, and she could be a cheerleader, I think, in a previous life. But she, they did a lot of recruiting. I think what it boils down to is it's a short period of time. So it's not as attractive when there's a tuition assigned to it, because the families still need to figure out, how am I going to get them there? How are they going to, I've got to pick them up, and then yet they also have to pay a tuition. Then they need to figure out a tuition for another program. They had a higher rate of participation when there wasn't a tuition charge. That's just the long and short.
And there was also a program I think that you mentioned briefly, the high intensity intervention that we talked about.
So, right, we started a classroom last year at Quaker Farm School for our students that typically we were outplacing to programs like CES or maybe Milestones. And really we were targeting students that had cognitive disabilities as well as maybe autism or a combination of both, but had intensive needs across all domains of function. So communication, behavior, motor, all of those factors and need being present. And really, in a resource room, you can't really address those needs intensively. So it is a self-contained classroom. And it is, at this point, half a year in its growth. And they're able to provide a very specific type of instruction under, the umbrella of ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis. They're able to do discrete trial training where they teach skills very specifically and very targeted. And there's a strong emphasis on building communication skills. So the students are working with various augmentative communication, picture exchange, and really trying to learn just that foundation of requesting needs and wants as a starting point.
Since we live in yourself in the district, you mentioned that we start to do programs between the schools themselves. Glad to hear that, because that's one of the things that consistency through each school, it's regular education, special education. Everything. So how do you feel right now, the culture, the schools are making all this changing?
I feel that our PPS staff are enthusiastic about what we do. I think that the program at Quaker is welcomed. I think that also the general education teachers at Quaker, the resource room teachers at Quaker feel that these kids' needs are being met more comprehensively. So I think that that's a really good feeling for them too. And I think that our new staff have meshed really well and are appreciating, what they're creating. So once again, talk to us. We'll get you over there. We'd love to have you come and see it.
And I have to say, parents are very happy that their kids are in Oxford Public Schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see anything on there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Next item is number 7, BOE meeting calendar for 2022. Who's in your packet? Any questions? No? Is it wrong to say I don't want to be here or that you guys on February 18th? Oh, yeah. Well, bring a camping. No, I mean, have a special meeting. No, so, it's only one meeting. February 14th.
So that's
2023. We have a little bit of time. We have a little bit of time. It's we get a motion to approve the calendar.
I would.
We have to send it to town hall. Yeah. Motion to approve the 2022-2023 meeting schedule. Second, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And motion carries. Report of the superintendent, Dr. Miller.
Evening. I am going to. It's gonna go cool there. I'm going to start with COVID. We've seen the news that positivity rate in Connecticut has steadily increased. It went up again today. We've seen a steady increase in cases here in the school district. Students and staff, vaccinated and unvaccinated, staff and students are getting sick. You should be seeing my consistent on the community. On behalf of the Concord Health District today, they sent out a report to us yesterday. I met with the Emergency Services Committee at town hall this morning to go over the state of the town of COVID. And there is concern within Oxford of the increases, and the recommendation from Lisa Morrison from the Concord Health District report we got yesterday was to pause at least through the end of this calendar year to the beginning of January once staying free because of the rising numbers in our area. There's concern that that could further increase the risk of transmission from person to person. So we made the decision to adhere with the recommendation from Concord Health District and email Weston's all parents and staff this afternoon, informing them that we pause that through the winter holiday and we'll reassess at the beginning of January. This gives an opportunity for students to stay healthy for the holidays and not risk further quarantine going into Christmas holiday and New Year's. We don't want students to miss school. I did look at the numbers. Right now we have upwards of 10 students that are students stay. They are going to be permitted to stay students stay. These would be new students. I will add that not every student that does become a close contact is eligible for student stay. So it's a small finite to begin with that is eligible. So we had a quarantine at our pre-K program yesterday. The nature of students keeping their masks off throughout the day in pre-K eliminates the entire group of students from screen instead. Our first grade, we have a first grade class that has positive contact in the classroom. The fact that they do mask breaks, the fact that they have snack breaks and have lunch and close contact, maybe rub, none of those students, because the nature of their contact, would qualify for screen and stay. So those are some examples that while screen and stay does lower the amount of students that need to go to quarantine, it doesn't eliminate it fully. So we had a good fair number of students that do not qualify for screen stay in the first place. And we did have families that said, you know what, I don't want screen stay, I just put my student in first anyway. So we hit pause for right now. So it's just this week that we'll reassess as soon as the rate ends with Clover Health District and the other surrounding towns to see how we're going to proceed from there. As far as the pool goes, that is an issue. I had a conversation with Joe a couple days ago. I did put it on the finance committee agenda for tomorrow to discuss. We've known for a while that the diving board is failing on us. We knew that the timing system had been on its last legs. We've also known that the pool lining, the wall of the pool and the floor has been deteriorating over time. We've had a number of issues with the pumps and the mechanisms that feed the water in the pool. We know that the doors are leaking on the floor surrounding the pool and the walls and doors in the pool area are falling apart. We looked at all of that last year. We compared and contrasted the need to repair that with the HVAC need at Center School and at Quaker Farms, and the decision was made when we put the capital improvement last January that the HVAC issues in those schools took precedence over returning the pool. So we budgeted for 2023 at the time to repair the pool. Our estimate back then was around $160,000 to $170,000 to repair the pool. It was not something that we had sitting around the operating budget at the time. To do that work is a capital expense, and it's still a capital expense. At some point last year, during one of the seasons, the timing system was failing us, and we did spend a few $1,000 to patch it up and repair it at the time. We thought that would last longer than it did. The fact that it has just recently broke, that was unexpected. We didn't expect it to fail again so quickly. Joe jumped right onto it as our building director. He got one vote, so there's a comment that we did not have a vote, we did have a vote. There are various different options for that vote, and the options range anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000, depending on what we're choosing. We do have a hard vote in hand, and we're actively seeking 2 additional votes because based on board of education policy, we need to have more than 1 vote in hand before making a decision. That repair money does not exist. Chris, you can go. You don't have to say. Thank you
My
very
son
much.
and his science homework help. Thank you.
As you would expect, we did not have in the operating budget repair money set aside to repair the pool for these repairs. We also have the diving board issue. We don't know yet if we need to replace the entire diving board or we can fix what's there. We have a vendor that's scheduled to come up tomorrow. That was the earliest we could get it out here. We just learned last week that the diving board had failed on us. So this was the fastest we get somebody out here was tomorrow. There's not a diver on the boys swimming team. So that experience is needed to get there right now is not as high as fixing the timing system. Usually have active swimmers that do need the time. As I said minutes ago, we have scheduled for the finance committee tomorrow to discuss the pool. My recommendation will be for the finance committee to give approval to use incentive activities money that's sitting there either in the pay for play or the high school rentals to fix the pool issue. We obviously don't have $160,000 to fix all the items there. I also don't need to spend all of the activities. We can also use those funds to get the water to the field. So I'm trying to get those 2 issues resolved. So my recommendation is for the finance committee to review and approve the use of the funds tomorrow. And Jonah has spoken. We're going to then bring it to the facility committee for them to weigh the repair needs for both the pool and the water field, which the bid just went out today. We just don't want to spend all money on one project. We'd like to get both these done. So we are actively working on it, and we're trying to follow the board of policies that exist with what we need to propose and give it to the. We jumped on this immediately. I received that email on Saturday, and even within an hour of receiving an email of a challenge to the pool, I responded right back and communicated the race that we had. So I'm trying to stay communication with information to be as transparent as possible. I can answer any questions you have with that, or we'll discuss more in the finance meeting as well.
We do have someone that maintains the pool.
We do. We have a vendor that does maintain the pool. The problem is that we have mechanical equipment there, and that is from 2007, and we've got computer equipment from the timing system. It's old. What we're finding a lot of this, the problems that we're having just applied or stuff in high school, that stuff is just starting to fall apart as the age of the building. And we're seeing that the pool is used heavily by others, by the community, and by our high school athletic program. And as such, it's beginning to deteriorate. And it's a big meeting. It's not a low cost item to repair. That's the problem.
I mean, so you're going to discuss this tomorrow, but theoretically, we could get quotes and funds. Fixing the things that would stop our kids from competition. So timing, or
Right.
if we have a maintenance person who's maintaining the regular, we should get a report from them, obviously, right? And then,
Right.
like, again, if it's big structural, $150,000, that's kind of for the capital fund.
Right.
But if we're talking, odds and ends for 20 grand, it's just gonna be this month.
And that's what we're planning to do. Yeah, that's what we do.
He's right. I mean, we can't, for example, the hot water tanks, which, that was, this stuff's starting to come up all year. We lose out about 50 years. So, I mean, we're gonna eventually town to be a maintenance.
Well, this isn't, I mean, this is not, this is not our strong suit in this town. This is how schools have been for decades.
Right.
It's gonna stop. And if it means taxes go over, they go.
We have to go, funding capital.
No, we don't. I'm tired.
And part of the problem, Steve, is that we did bring the capital plan to the town board of finance report selectmen last year. And we did put a request in for a check for paper farms at center school for the next 3 or 4 years to fix all that. And you know what we were approved for capital this year? Nothing. Didn't make a difference what we presented. Nothing was funded this year for capital. Nothing in the plan. And I could put the diving swimming pool in year 1, and it still was not put that in the budget this year. And we did meet with Jack Riley, Anthony and I last meeting, had a conversation and he convinced me an hour. And we discussed that a high priority need of capital improvement for facilities, and the pool was something that was right on the top of our list. And actually, it's the first thing we talked about above HVAC of elementary schools was the need for that pool to be repaired. And I think that's going to be easier to fix the timing system initially, because that's more of an exceeding need, and fix the diving board issue as the next step. But we are actively working on it, just Apple got right on it immediately with getting components, getting quotes, because he's actively trying to get this resolved with us. Any questions with that? So that's the pool. I do want to encourage you, I'm going to share this with you. On Saturday, as part of the Festival of Trees, the high school put on their winter concert in conjunction with center school. This is a copy of the program. You'll see that there is a range of music that was performed at the concert. It was performed from all the different choirs, the jazz band, and the center school students choir also played. There is a link on that program to the high school Facebook account. That concert actually was recorded live broadcast, and you can actually watch the concert on the Facebook page. It was wonderful having an audience this year. We had made 150 programs, they ran out of programs, and we needed to make more programs for people that actually came into the auditorium. This obviously is the first year that we've done a concert in conjunction with Festival Trees, and it worked. We actually, the festival brought more people into the concert, and the concert brought more people into the festival. So I think it's something that we can actually encourage to think like next year as well, and work really, really nice.
I love the fact that you brought the center school kids up to the high school.
I would love to see other schools also participate.
Absolutely.
There's some questions last week on social media about elementary school concert. Where did that go? The decision was made to make it more virtually open. The middle school concert is scheduled for January. They decided to push it into January to make it a winter concert and get out of all the schedule issues with the holiday period of time. When we have the dates out, I'm not even sure when they know the date yet. There's some complication because they're using the high school stage. And the high school play was moved from last month until sometime in January, so it's being used right now. But to officially publicly welcome our new assistant principal, Stephanie Kubicek, who started yesterday and hit the ground running. So it's great to see high school initiation for staff. So thank you for hiring for that. I also want to thank Ann Albert, who's not here tonight, for again arranging for the high school art to be on display. She's on her calendar to see this afternoon, putting it all out. So make sure you take a look at that. The elementary school teachers worked really hard last week. There were 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. They had early dismissals. They did parent teacher conferences. They were exhausted by the end of the day. But they had very good conversations with parents throughout those 2 days. And the middle school high school had been a couple weeks before that. The budget process is underway. So Eric and I have been meeting with all the principals and call center directors. So at each school presentation, we've had Buttonfer and Dorothy Hunter representing curriculum and technology. As part of this conversation, take a listen in here to make sure what's being asked for is in the right budgets and whether it belongs to construction or technology. We're rounding out the other call centers. We've done special education, we've done facilities, getting athletics in order, and then the district stuff. We're planning next week to begin some office teams to put together all the budgets together and see where we are at. My goal is to go into the winter vacation, knowing what we are at in terms of our percent, and then start building the budget book for January for a budget workshop, and then eventually the budget presentation to you in January. So we're well underway with that. Tomorrow night, the Board of Selectmen is meeting to, from the last thing of their agenda, to vote the name of the new name for what was Center School, the building they were in that moved to the former location of Great Oak Middle School. And from what I understand, they're planning on voting as Great Oak Elementary School, which will be a combination of the former name plus what we had thought it should be, which is Aqua Elementary School. So it's a combination of both. So that's tomorrow night. So that's tomorrow night. Of course,
Well, hopefully we can have a ceremony.
Yeah.
And my last comment is to thank you to Jackie, who is behind the scenes, but this is her last Board of Education meeting where she is serving as her clerk. And I know that from my perspective, I've seen very high capacity for her to nail those minutes down right, and we're really nice to meet you and express that. So Jackie, you're not here, but thank you for your.
The issue of hiring board clerks. I spoke to Stephanie today. We would like certainly to put the posting up, but
Postings up.
we would, since the board clerk, we would like to at least have some input
Oh, absolutely.
on that hiring. We lucked out with Jackie, so we're hoping that we get someone who minutes of knowledge she's done. So Jackie, you are appreciated, and we thank you very much. Especially Kaiser being the secretary, makes my life a lot easier.
You can't see her, but she does smile. Really. Yeah.
The text messages, what was the call? She's just been great, so. Before the chair is the designee, I guess I'm the designee. I have absolutely nothing to report. I just would like to thank you all and wish you all a happy and safe holiday. Enjoy your families, enjoy enjoy the time and take off. And remember, you're all very important to class for kids, the staff, and you are truly appreciated. We can do first, subcommittees, facilities, Jeff.
Just to update, subject, so we have some options for public for the HVAC. Monetary purposes and schools. Soon as some of that stuff starts getting going, kind of start having that, well. It's like it's going away.
Typically, we have it ready in conjunction with the operating budget, so in January, we're working on that. And we really did a lot of hard work on it last year, it just didn't end up being used, so
Yeah.
it's really, reused what we've done.
Anybody have questions for Jeff? Okay, well, here's my new project, curriculum, technologies, and communication. Shared my first meeting of last night. We have started a deep dive into all of our curriculum. We have currently completed an update to the program of studies, which we're very thrilled to have updated. And I'd like to show you part of it, pass this around. We have our Oxford High School career paths, which are on where this program of studies. What we kind of pass, and I think everyone who's been working on it. We are looking into what the area of and we will be making changes. We will be updating our website curriculum. Right now, our Atlas document has been this website, Atlas is not under construction. Well, we will Atlas will be changing it, but what was on the website is now under construction. Yeah, we're not going to be using the Atlas, we're creating a new web page for that. So it'll be more up to date, easier to find, more details than what we had in the past. So I think it'll be everybody.
I think it'll be more to what we should be done in the school system, not what Atlas is going to be, so that when somebody does a deep dive into it, and they find, what the heck is this? Sit here going, what the heck is that? You know, they won't have curriculum updated and get consistent throughout the school, thing was mentioned before, having consistency with K, grade 12. is one of the important things that we're looking at. It's the reason for the career path. It's the ones that look at the end and try to filter it down to the beginning. Part of the thing that I did with the special education is that one of the things that Jason had said is that we wanted to capture, kids with disabilities or whatever, early preschool, kindergarten, so that we're working on that going forward instead of trying to catch it in 7th and 8th grade. So it appears that on the intensity and how much it's growing, I think we're succeeding at that. So I sit here and I hear 50 more students involved. I'm not surprised because we're looking at it. So I think we're doing a lot. And I think this moment to compliment the board. I think this past year, we kept focus on the day-to-day. But we never lost function. Direction of what we have to do at school. At all the school districts, we find things have already been done. So I think we're extremely next year. And I want to thank you for your questions. You're always deep, you're always provocative, and you presented it in a nice manner. In a nice manner. was presented to that.
And I will also add that some of the material that had been on Atlas was out of date. And there was at least one course that was referenced by you last time that is not even running. So that's one reason we did take it down.
I don't think that class ever ran.
Right.
It was a program of studies, but it
It was
never
never run.
actually run. So that was one of the reasons why we kind of dug into the program of studies and, make sure that we're running for advertising classes that we're actually on. We're also going to do a look through the social studies curriculum. We talked about bylaw changes for the curriculum committee. We're going to come up with some ideas, and we're going to forward those on to the policy committee. Have them look at that. Make some changes if you want, but hopefully keep it. We had 3 new course programs submitted. We reviewed them a little bit, and then go back and look at them again. Nothing was approved. The pilot of Spanish textbook. And we got a brief update on math curriculum. We're going to have math tutors.
Yeah, interventionists.
So thank you. At our February meeting, so I forgot to mention that, but I hope everyone got a chance to look at the videos, the blog things that Rob sent them. It's really great. Anything else that I missed about?
That's pretty comprehensive.
Did I miss?
So,
That's it. Anybody have some questions? Policy, Nicole?
Okay, so for years and years and years, we had paid policies. We recently replaced them with shipment and Goodwin. And we have a contract with shipment and Goodwin, which keeps us up to date with the latest changes in the law. Rob sent us all a memo back on November 10th that it outlined the highlights of the necessary changes that we need to make in order to keep us up to date. We did our first read with Deb last meeting, and it's on the agenda tonight for a second read. So hopefully all of you guys had a chance to take a look at all of this. If you have any questions, now's our chance to talk about it. Otherwise, I make a motion to adopt the policy updates as outlined in the November 10th, 2021 memo. Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
So,
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
so what will happen next is I will now integrate the changes into our live policies that we have to update.
Fantastic. Thank you for all your hard work.
And the policies are on board docs.
They are on board docs and it's there.
Board one to look at board policy. Okay. Finance and personnel, Mike?
Sure. No major updates. Our next subcommittee meeting is tomorrow at noon. It'll be over Zoom.
Thanks, Mike. Liaison report. I know Stephanie was not able to attend the Oasis meeting, but she will get us the date for Seed in Plain Sight.
Stephen Prince, I had a conversation with our high school psychologist and social worker who attended the Oasis meeting.
Okay.
And I talked to Dr. Brown this morning about that. There's a planned presentation for freshmen that they're trying to get for probably January, which would be for all freshmen to participate in. So that is one of the events that Oasis is putting together.
In Plain Sight.
In Plain Sight, this is something in addition to that.
And we talked about maybe pulling it down to number of grades as well. So maybe if that's something that we talk to the way system. I think maybe middle school kids, parents, it's probably more just as.
Yeah. The Hidden Printed is a phenomenal program nationwide. And the program that it put together is a freshman panel, which will have a series of specialists that would be speaking to parents and students.
And our new liaison was strategic operating plan.
We've had 2 meetings. What we've done is that the first meeting kind of, we selected groups and handled certain areas. Critical thinking as well as learning, broke it down. And then the second meeting, we did a kind of a table, round table charting, so that we can find out what questions are coming up. Important as the members of the team, and so that we weren't researching it over and over again. Because, as you know, you can say the same question 12 ways. So we went through that, and we got an update on that, which kind of narrowed it down to our focus. So our third meeting is where I feel is where the work really starts. Is to get into our individual areas and start to put it together. We review the past operating plan, and what the weaknesses were with that, what the board had been asking for. I don't know if this is the first time the board member's been on this committee. Over the years, we kept asking for certain things, so there to make sure that those items been addressed. And biggest thing is accountability for time and food. Sit there and just walk on through fast. So I think we're on a good track. We've got a great team. Excited, it's fun to be on. Hopefully we'll get a good team.
Thanks for that. Before you go. Hold on, update, we went to the last meeting.
I did attend the last leadership club meeting, and they primarily spoke about the details for the festival of trees and the pizza and fancy with friends. And I did attend that Friday night, and once again, that was also heavily attended. It was great to walk around the cafeteria nowadays. They're having pizza, and they had the high school drama club put together, Polar Express, and 3 different shows of that. Students and their parents that listened to stories that were read to them. There's cookies, there's refreshments. That was heavily attended. They had 3 different set of pizzas and that parents and children went through. That was primarily the part of their meeting. This week's talk about also to give an update on winter athletics, in which case the CIC is releasing or has released a new set of guidelines which will allow students, whether they're vaccinated, to take your mask off during play after December 23rd. However, I'm hearing rumors that the CIC might be backed off from those changes now. So we're still waiting to see now what going to come out of that. I also think the PTO meeting, you were not last night.
I was online.
Yeah, the December meeting for Thursday night got canceled for attendance issues. I'd like to see more parents attend the December meeting as well.
I meant to ask this before. How are kids out the infection rates statistics? Can you ask them what the hospitalization rate is?
I can pull them up here.
No,
So we get an update on Friday.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I can share that our over 65 and older, we are up there in terms of getting higher vaccination rates. 18 to 24 is very, very high. Under 18, you see that we drop in between 25 and 64. There's a sharp decline as well. Overall, we're in 16% range in terms of vaccination for our town. But I'm also finding that those that are vaccinated also getting sick. And from what I learned at our meeting this morning, while people are getting sick, they're not getting as sick.
That's what I'm curious.
Yeah. What Dr. Brown explained is if you're vaccinated, you're going to see anywhere from a low grade cold to a week of flu-like conditions. And if you're unvaccinated, you.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason, I mean, they're all throwing the sky is falling, and then like 3 weeks later, back off.
Right.
So
Dr. Brown did not indicate that Griffin is being overrun right now. I'm not hearing that in the Connecticut hospitals as you're hearing elsewhere. But the positivity rate is increasing, and the good thing there is that kids are not getting significantly ill, and that's remains outside in the very beginning.
I just noticed that I've got a memo on WTNH, but the Arlington School Board went on record with an interview stating that they do not support masking versus unmasking in sports. They find it discriminatory and create segregation, and they're not in support of it. They follow whatever guidelines. They went out and voiced as a board their opinion not in favor of that approach. And quite honestly, I think the board board's going to step up, making that more.
You know, coming in office, make a response to that, you know?
I don't know, I just think there's more brewing.
Yeah.
And it's an appropriate question, I think, in my opinion, as a board member. So it's not something on my mind.
My main concern if the CISA rules stay in effect is that you're gonna have 5 basketball players in the field, 3 wearing masks and 2 not wearing masks. Now you have publicly outed students that have elected out of their own personal choice not to get vaccinated. And it's setting those students up for whatever happens. You're signaling out this student is different than that student. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that type of statement that it's making there. I don't know what the right answer is. But I don't necessarily agree with outing students in that way and sending up for from the social emotional lens. The going on the wrong path for that.
And that's what also the board was speaking about as well when it comes to instances of potential bullying, which is happening in schools right now around the same topic. So, I mean, I'm just wondering myself, I'm not supportive of it.
Right, and for that reason, for the play to be forced out of town, we purchased a clear face mask for every student in the play because the play has the same rules as sports where students who are unvaccinated are like masked off. So instead of having something within the out, we bought a singular mask that was clear for all students that didn't matter who you were, you all look the same and be viewed in the same way. But,
Singing, performing on stage, so. We have one last item to address, and it's executive session. I'll make a motion to enter into executive session and invite in Dr. Miller and Mr. Kibber to discuss the potential MOU with the bargaining unit. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.